Hello students, today we are going to begin a new lesson in which we will discuss as to how we can write answer to the causation question for A-level history paper 2. This is basically a step-by-step demonstration of how we can write answer to these type of questions. So first of all, look at the examples of these questions. As you can see, they generally begin with the command words explain why, and mostly these questions carry 10 marks, as you can see here. Now what structure your response actually should show? First of all, you have to you have to read out very carefully the question and then develop its understanding. Once you have done that, you will begin your planning. You will write an outline in which you will show the key features of your response, and once you have done that, you will start writing the first paragraph in which you will actually write a you will write a two-step short introductory paragraph in which you do two things. Firstly, you will write the main causes, and then secondly, you will write a judgment that may not be fully supported. And then once you have done that, then you will move on to write the second paragraph in which you will actually write a five-step this is actually a five-step paragraph in which you are going to do five things. First of all, you are going to write the major reason. In order, you have to write down the first reason that is the most important, and actually you have to you write down the reasons in order of their importance. Okay, so then after writing the major reasons as the point, as the main idea of the first paragraph, you will write the second sentence that will show the evidence of this reason, and then you will explain it further, and after that you will actually show the importance of this reason. Once you have done that, you will write a few sentences or a sentence that will actually link up this reason with the next one or the next paragraph. Then once you have done that, then you're going to write the third paragraph. That is again a five-step paragraph in which you will repeat all these things. Once you have done that, you will write the following paragraph, and finally you are going to write in your fifth paragraph a supported judgment, in which you do two things actually. Firstly, you are going to write the most important reason and show why do you think it is the most important and why the others are less important. Secondly, you will show as the connection between these causes or reasons. So this is how you will write your judgment. Now I have chosen for you a causation question that carry 10 marks, as you can see here. The question is, explain why the States General was not able to deal with the issues France faced. So this is the question. Now let's see how practically we will actually write answer to this question. First of all, you will do the planning. You will write an outline. So what outline we can write in answer to this question? First of all, you will write an introduction, as I told you before. The first reason, the most important reason, is actually that I have written here is the frustration with the king, and the second one, uncertainty in the country. The third one, political deadlock, and the fourth reason is actually the king's bad faith. So these are the four reasons that I am going to write within four paragraphs. I would recommend that you can write between 3 and 4 reasons. Okay, now finally you will write a conclusion, that is your supported judgment. So this is actually this is the outline. Now how we are going to actually do what we have written in this outline. So let's see. First of all, we will write a short introductory paragraph. So in answer to this question, what I have written, I can repeat here so that it would be reinforcing. Basically, when you write your introductory paragraph, you do two things. First of all, you actually introduce or open your causes or open the reasons. Secondly, you actually write a judgment that is not fully developed. Okay, now what introduction I have written in response to this question. As you can see, this paragraph shows the introduction. So I can read out this introduction. There are several reasons why the States General was not able to deal with the issues. The most important one was probably the growing frustration with the king. He could not remove uncertainty that mainly began when the procedure for conducting the sessions of the States General was not clear. The conflicting interest caused a political deadlock, leading to its ineffectiveness. Most commoners began to resent that he was acting in bad faith by hampering reforms and working of the Estates General. They did not want the Estates General to function in the old ways, which largely protected the king and the first and second estates. This growing frustration with the king increased political tension and made agreement between the estates increasingly difficult. So I have actually, as I have told you, that what I have done in this introduction is that first of all I have introduced the different reasons, all these reasons. As you can see in yellow highlighted area, the growing frustration is the first reason, uncertainty in the country is the second reason, political deadlock the third one, and the king's bad faith, king was acting in bad faith, that is the fourth reason. So this is these are the four reasons why a States General was actually not able to deal with the problem that the country was facing at that time. So that means this is these are the reason. At the same time, there is another feature that you can see in this introduction, and that is that it actually shows the connection between these reasons. No reason is actually given written in such a way that it is showing it is independent, it is showing it is actually acting independently. No, each and every reason is actually connected to each other. For example, the growing frustration with the king, he could not remove uncertainty. That is the impact that mainly began when the procedure for conducting the sessions of the States General was not clear. So that causes actually the political deadlock, and when there was political deadlock, that means most commoners began to resent that there was a feeling that the king was actually acting in bad faith. So all these reasons are actually connected to each other. So this is how you are going to write your introduction now. And your next paragraph, meaning second paragraph, you're going to write a 5-step paragraph. Now let's see what are these 5 steps. First of all, as I told you before, you are going to write in order of importance the most important reason first. So you will write as a point the major reason as the first reason. In the second paragraph, you will state its evidence, and at the same time you will explain it. Then you will show the importance of this reason, and finally you will write you will link it up with the next reason. So let's see how I have written this point or the first reason. As you can see, this yellow highlighted area shows the point or the first most important reason. The most important reason for the failure of the Estates General was growing frustration with the king. So this is the reason or the point. In this case, this is the point. This is and this is representing the point or the main idea of the paragraph. Or at the same time, it is actually the most important reason. Now, what evidence is there for this reason? Louis XVI supported the system of voting by estates that alienated the third estate. So that is actually the evidence. And now how I'm going to explain this? This could allow the first and second estates to outvote the third estate. A strong reaction came from the third estate. Its coheres were also largely different from those of the other states on several issues. As a result, it challenged the king's authority by voting to declare itself the National Assembly and claimed to be the competent authority to reform the taxation system. This was not the purpose with which the Estates General was called. So I have actually given the explanation to this reason in such a way that it is actually addressing the question. It is showing why the States General was actually not successful in dealing with the issues that the country at that time was facing. So this is actually you can see here. This could allow. So you have to. What actually I want, I must put emphasis on the point here that you should write the explanation in such a way that it should actually answer the question. It should address the question. It should not be irrelevant, or it should be exactly addressing the question. How it is addressing the question? I have written here that you can see, this could allow the first and second estates to outward the third. A strong reaction came from the third estate. Its coheres were not were largely different. Okay, as a result, it challenged the king's authority by voting to declare itself the National Assembly and claim it to be the competent authority. This was not the purpose. So that means when the Estates General was not actually acting as a body, it was that means it was no longer functioning as a single body in its old fashion. That means it's not sure actually dealing the issues that the country was facing. Now, what importance is there for this reason? It was divided along political lines and could not work together for dealing with the issues the country faced. The king could not play a role to successfully resolve the issue. He started losing support largely from the third estate, which offered resistance and could not allow the estate's journal to continue its session in the old way. Without king's effective leadership, the estate's journal could not introduce reforms smoothly. So this is actually the importance of the reason. Importance is generally in one way to show what to understand the importance in this case is that you actually try to show the impact of the reason. So what is the impact? It was divided along political lines and could not work together for dealing with the issue. That means the estates journal was divided along political lines, and that was why it was not actually able to deal with the issues. Secondly, the king couldn't play any successful a leading role. He couldn't come up with the effective strategy to actually come out of this crisis. So that was why this shows that he started losing support largely from the third estate. So that means which offered resistance and could not allow the Estates General to continue its session in the old way. So without king's effective leadership, the Estates General could not introduce reforms smoothly. So this is the importance. Now you are going to write the next few sentences that actually will link up this reason with the next reason or with the next paragraph. For example, this shows that disagreement over authority turned the Estates General from a reforming body into a divided political institution. As a result, uncertainty began to grow in the country. So basically, I have done two things here. Firstly, this linking sentence with the next paragraph is acting in two ways. It is also showing the point, it is also showing the importance of the reason and at the same time, it is actually linking up this reason with the next one. And it is also the third is that it is also actually slightly opening up a new reason. And that is actually, let's see what is that new reason in the next paragraph now. So that in your third paragraph, you're going to write again a 5-step paragraph. This is again a 5-step paragraph. So what is the next reason in the next paragraph? This uncertainty was clearly visible in the case of the working of the Estates General. So this means that the next reason is that uncertainty in the country or within the Estates General, a political uncertainty that was actually hampering, that was clearly visible in the working of, that was actually hampering the working of the Estates Journal. So if you look at the previous paragraph, look at this. As a result, uncertainty began to grow in the country. That means I have touched on this topic, this theme, uncertainty, in the last sentence of this paragraph already, and in this next paragraph I have introduced it as a new reason. Now what evidence I have given here? It had not met since 1614. No clarity existed about its working mechanism. So that is actually the evidence to this. And what explanation is there for this? It was accepted that it represented three orders that included the clergy, the nobility, and the commoners, but differences existed between them. The first and second estates wanted to run the estates journal in the traditional manner, However, the third estate insisted on changes in the ways it would be operated. The king and aristocracy could not remove such deadlock. This shows that there was I have written this explanation in such a way that it is actually answering the question directly. What answering it is actually, what is this, it what does it answer? It answers that why the estate general was not actually fully able to deal with the issue. Why? Because there was it was accept because differences existed between them. These the states were actually the States General was not able to work in a traditional old way. That means the failure of the Estates Journal to run itself in the old way is actually making it unsuccessful to deal with the issues. So that is actually the explanation in such a way that it is actually addressing the issue. Whenever you write the paragraph, keep one point in mind, that keep reading the question again and again. Whenever you uh, start begin a new paragraph, make sure that you have a look at the question again, so that this will keep you focused. Okay, what is the importance to this reason? This was a clear indication that serious differences within the estate's journal hindered its working as a single body. No one clearly knew what lay ahead. The king proved indecisive and incompetent to give and apply an effective policy for removing the political deadlock. So that means this is the importance that actually is again addressing the question. Now the next sentence is, as we have done in the previous paragraph, is the link that will again show at the same time, that will also show a point of importance. As a result, the Estates Journal became unable to focus on France's financial and political problems, which prevented it from carrying out effective reforms. So that means this is again actually uh, this is a linking paragraph. This is actually linking up this reason with the next, this paragraph with the next paragraph, and at the same time this is also a point of importance, a point that shows the importance of this reason. But and thirdly, at the same time, this is also slightly giving a hint of the next reason. So what hint is there? States Journal became unable to focus, which prevented it carrying out effective reform. So the Estates General was no longer an effective body. So this is actually the new reason that it's opened up. Okay, now let's see and read out the point for the or the reason for the next paragraph. This deadlock changed the Estates General into almost an ineffective body. So see, as you can see in the previous paragraph, in the link of the previous paragraph, here is the link. What was it written here? What was the conclusion? It prevented it from carrying an effective reform. So that means it was no longer an effective body. And so this is what actually have I this is what I have linked with the next reason, that this deadlock changed the Estates General into almost an ineffective body. So this is how one paragraph is linked up with the next. One theme, one reason, or one cause is linked up with the next one. What reason is there? It could not reform economic, social, and political systems in order to address the issue. So this is the evidence that the Estates General was not able to actually bring about reforms. And what explanation is there? The institutions of the ancient regime remained. The clergy, aristocracy, and feudalism remained powerful and offered resistance to any significant changes. There were members of the third and second estates who wanted to use the estates journal to abolish feudalism and the system of taxation. When they failed in this venture, they prevented it from functioning in its old-fashioned way. Through the tennis court oaths, they declared that they would not cooperate with the existing system until a constitution was given to France. So that means this explanation is actually directly addressing the question as to why the Estates General was to unable to deal with the issues. Why? Because it was they this is the explanation. They prevented it from functioning in its old fashioned way. So when the Estates General was not able to function in the old fashioned way, that means it was no longer actually able to uh, deal with the issues the country was facing. What importance to this reason is there? This shows this shows the States General lacked capacity to deal with the challenges the country faced. It could not satisfy the commoners. So this is the point that show the importance. Now, how I am going to link it up with the next reason. They began to develop radical and extreme ideas, having little hope and confidence in the king. This collapse of cooperation further weakened the Estates General and made it ineffective in solving France's problem. So that means here, uh, I have, as I have been telling you before, that this linking sentence or few sentences that shows the link, they actually they have the three features. Firstly, they show the importance of the reason, and at the same time, these sentences also show that the link between this reason and the next. And the third one is that they open up slightly the new reason. For example, in this case, as you can see here, having little hope and confidence in the king. So this is the sentence, this part of the sentence actually is opening up a new reason that will be appeared in the next paragraph. Now you can see therefore there was a growing belief that the king was acting in bad faith. Why? How we link it up? Let's see now. Uh, Having little hope and confidence in the king. What does that mean? That means, as you can see here, that there was a growing belief among the people that the king was acting uh, in bad faith. So, what evidence is there for this? When the new assembly became assertive, fear spread that the king would use force to restore the traditional functioning of the Estates General as well. Many people were afraid that he was considering the use of troops in Paris for restoring his authority. The Paris mob even attacked the Bastille, which was then fallen. Even the governor was brutally killed. So these sentences show the evidence that why evidence of why the king was showing the bad faith. Why? Because the new assembly, when the new assembly became assertive, there was the people, there were a fear, there were apprehension among the people that he would try to restore not only his authority, but at the same time he would also try to restore uh, restore the Estates General in its purely old way. So that means he was resisting the, the radical reforms. That means the king was no longer uh, trustworthy to those people who were actually looking for radical reforms. So this is the explanation, and this is sorry the evidence. Now, what explanation is there? The strong reaction meant that possibility of restoring the authority of the king and the Estates General in its old order seemed very limited. So this evidence is actually what does this and what is the impact of the events or activities that are shown in this paragraph in this green highlighted area. This shows that these are the events. For example, the Paris mob attacked the Bastille, which was then fallen. The governor was brutally killed. These are These events show the evidence. And what is the importance of these evidence? Because these evidence show that the strong reaction of the people. These activities actually represent the strong reaction from the people, and this meant that there is little hope or almost no hope of restoring the estate's journal to its old fashion or old ways. So that means when the Estates General was not able to be restored to its original or old ways, that means the Estates General was actually not able to deal with the issues. Now, again, this is the explanation, and that is actually addressing the question. Now, what is the importance of this reason now? This shows many people had little hope in the Estates Journal for resolving their problem. As the influence of the assembly kept growing, the Estates General became less relevant. It was no longer standing as a united body to deal with the issues. The third estate could not persuade the king and the other estates to agree for reforms. They believed that the king could not be relied on for reforms through the Estates General. This shift of authority to the National Assembly further undermined the Estates General and removed its ability to deal with France issues. So this is the importance, and this importance is written in such a way that it is actually addressing the question. It is showing that why the Estates General was no longer a competent or an effective body to deal with the issues. So it was showing almost basically the ineffectiveness of the Estates General. That show the importance, and that is actually addressing the question. Now this is, there is no link. I haven't added any link to this paragraph. Why? Because this is the final reason that I have added to this response. There is no other reason that would come after this response, after this paragraph. So that is why this is a four-step paragraph: point, evidence, explanation, and importance. No link. Why? Because there is no next paragraph. So what does that mean? That means there would be now a spotted conclusion. We would write a spotted judgment. A spotted judgment has two key features. You're going to do, when you write a spotted conclusion, you will do two things. First, you will write the most important reason, and you will show why do you think that this is the most important reason, and at the same time you will also show as to why the others are less important reasons. Okay, and then secondly you will also show the connections between them. So let's now see what spotted conclusion I have written here to answer this question. As you can see here, this is actually the spotted conclusion. Let me read. On the whole, it may be concluded that the increasing frustration with the king was the main reason why the Estates General could not address the issues. The frustration of the commoners increased opposition against the first and second estates, creating divisions, uncertainty, political deadlock, and the loss of confidence in the king. Though the divisions, uncertainty, political deadlock, and loss of confidence changed the Estates General into an ineffective body, it was the frustration of the lower classes that led to all this. The angry members of the Third Estate demanded radical reforms, which divided the upper and low classes within the Estates General. The careers of each estate did not fully match, no compromise followed, and there were deadlock and uncertainty, leading the commoners to have almost no hope in the king. Therefore, frustration with the king was the underlying cause because it created uncertainty and distrust, which led directly to divisions and deadlock that prevented the Estates General from functioning effectively and solving France's problems. Now you can see the two features in this spotted judgment. First, I have written this judgment. On the whole, it may be concluded that the increasing frustration with the king was the main reason why the Estates General could not address the issue. So this is the judgment. So I have straight away written that the first growing frustration was the main reason. Now, why it was main reason? look at the next sentence. The frustration of the commoners increased opposition because it increased the opposition against the first and second estates. That created divisions, uncertainty, political deadlock, and the loss of confidence in the king. So, what actually I have tried to do here, I have given the judgment that by mentioning the most important reason, and also I show that why this the growing frustration was the major reason. And secondly, I have also linking all these reasons to each other. I am connecting them. They are not actually existing in isolation independently. Okay, now next is, and though the divisions, uncertainty, political deadlock, and loss of confidence changed the States General into an ineffective body. It was the frustration of the low classes that led to all this. Now, I have also given the reason as why the other reasons are less important, because it was actually the increasing frustration that caused that led on to uncertainty, a political deadlock, divisions, and the loss of confidence in the king. So that is actually the major. That is the root cause in a way. Okay, now the angry mob, this is the explanation. The angry mob of the third estate demanded radical reforms, which actually divided the upper and lower classes. Here, these points, as you can see here, these are the some points that show development and explanation. Therefore, frustration with the king was the underlying cause because it created uncertainty and distrust, which led directly to divisions and deadlock that prevented the States General from functioning effectively and solving France's problems. This last sentence is actually the conclusion that is not only connecting all these reasons to each other, but at the same time, they are also showing that they are also actually addressing the question. That's all for now, and I would also below the description, I would put the slides in PDF format for you to download. So hopefully this session will be helpful to you. And I must put emphasis on the point that under the Cambridge system, 50% is your knowledge and the remaining 50% are your skills. The mostly what happened that students, they generally there is a trend that the students focus more on knowledge and less on developing their skills. Skills meaning they must know how to do causation, how to write explanation, how to write supported judgment, how to actually analyze. So all these things are actually representing your skills. So what happened actually, the mostly students they acquire knowledge, and they actually have good command over knowledge, but they have less command over these skills. So Cambridge, under the Cambridge system, 50% is your knowledge and the remaining 50% are your skills. So in order, skills and knowledge, they actually go side by side under the Cambridge system. And if you want to achieve the highest grades, you have to be learning, you have to learn both knowledge and at the same time the skills. So this is from my part, this is I actually today try to focus more on the skills that the students are actually mostly students are lacking in. Hopefully this session will be helpful to you. Thank you.